Good evening and welcome to the February 17th, 2026 meeting of the Plymouth Select Board. The board is going to be meeting in executive session tonight. The Select Board will hold an executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Clause 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. I do so declare. The meeting tonight will be in regards to 30 Town Wharf, which is being operated by Cabby Shack, Inc. The subject will be a lease extension. Is there a motion to enter executive session?
So moved.
Mr. Canty makes the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Iaquinto seconds. Is there a discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
And myself, yes. The board will enter executive session. We'll return at approximately 6 p.m. Good evening, folks. Thank you for joining us here. It's 10 past 6 on February 17th. We're here for the Select Board's open session. We've just returned from executive session. Please join the board in the pledge to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of the Plymouth Select Board after first notifying the chair, subject to the reasonable requirements of the chair so as not to interfere with the conduct of the meeting. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair will inform other attendees of any such recordings. I'm presently aware of the local scene. Is there anyone else who's making a video or audio recording of this meeting? Hearing and seeing none, I'll move on. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency and signed into law on March 28, 2025, this meeting will be conducted via remote means and in person. Members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so by tuning in to the local scene, government cable access channels Comcast 9 or Verizon 47. You can watch the meeting as it's aired live or watch the meeting live on the local scene's website. You can also watch the replay on those channels as well as YouTube. Members of the public who wish to participate may do so by appearing here in the Great Hall at Plymouth Town Hall at 26 Court Street, or remotely using the Zoom link, which is listed on our agenda and posted on the website. So the first item on our agenda is administrative notes. We've got 6 notes. Pleasure of the board.
Move them as listed.
Mr. Quinto makes a motion to move them as a group. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Iaquinto seconds. Discussion? Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Mr. Quinto?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Our next item of business is public comment. Is there any public comment? Come on up, introduce yourself. Make sure your microphone is turned on and the light is green.
Hi, my name is Jim Parmenter, and I just stopped by because I was just walking around the waterfront and up the side streets, and they were pretty much impassable. So I was wondering what we're going to do about snow removal on all these sidewalks, and who's responsible, whether it's the homeowners, businesses, or the town.
Thank you for your comment. We typically do not respond to public comments.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to register a public comment? Come on up and introduce yourself. Can you make sure your microphone's on? Just press.
Oh, where it says green light, sorry. I'm Kate Butler. I'm a resident of 60 Robbins Road, and I am here with the League of Women Voters to urge you to vote to approve the Safe Communities Act. I think that what we've seen happen in Minneapolis and LA has reminded us that sometimes we think we know or accepted ways of approaching things are upended quickly. And so I think the Safe Communities bylaw would enshrine in law what many of us expect. Since it deals with immigration and ICE, I certainly support enforcing immigration laws with dignity and due process. And I think this would allow the police chief to continue to do what he has been doing so well, but with the support of a bylaw. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to give a public comment?
Steve Lyden, South Plymouth, Precinct 17 member. I do not support this bylaw. They are a federal agency, and the federal agency can overrule, just like the state can overrule a town meeting regulation or a bylaw. Everything we do at town meeting has to go to the state to be approved. This bylaw does not do anything. It does not stop ICE. ICE can go where they want. They're a federal agency. They are federal officers. And if we, we can have bylaws for everything. How about, a bylaw for people shoveling their sidewalks? How about a bylaw for, spitting on the sidewalk? Let's have more bylaws. This is crazy.
Thank you, Mr. Lyden. Is there anyone else who'd like to give a public comment?
Jan Blanchard, Precinct 18. This is not silly. This is a serious matter. This bylaw is important. We need to vote on it as a town meeting. It's to protect people from ICE, and it will not hamper the police in any way. The police can still intervene if there's a criminal problem. But otherwise, the police can just continue to go about their business and they don't have to get involved with ICE. So I support this bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Mr. Bletzer?
Hi, Charlie Bletzer, Precinct 5. I have a question. When this presentation is, can we ask questions then? Because I'd like to hear the presentation before I make comments on this bylaw.
Again, we don't typically respond to
Well, that's
public
what I'm
comment,
saying.
but so we
I
don't
have a
allow
question.
the public to ask questions. If the board decides to reopen public comment during that section of the agenda, I will do so, but we won't allow back and forth questions.
Okay, with that being said, I'll make comments in case I don't get to ask questions. I want to know what the difference is with this bylaw as opposed to the chief's policy that he already has in place. I was at a meeting a few meetings ago. It was a 6-hour meeting. 4 hours probably was on this specific topic. The meeting was to, Mr. Canty had a policy that he wanted to put in place. And they ended up after 4 hours of, I think, everybody in town just about get up to speak. At the end of that, they voted to support, in fact, it was unanimous to support Chief Flynn's policy. So I want to know what's different with what Mr. DeSloge proposes, that, why are we here to again supersede the chief's policy? If we already have a policy in place, I don't know why we're trying to change it. And the reason why it concerns me, because this is a very sensitive issue, immigration, the immigrants, you can be very supportive of them, which I am, because I know for a fact that the businesses need the workforce that the immigrants give us. So we need that. But at the same token, we have to abide by the laws. We have to let ICE do their job. We can't interfere with that. And to be quite frankly, I don't want this to become a spotlight, like what's happening in Minnesota and these other places where the National Guard comes in and all that. I don't want that to become too much of an issue. But this will confuse people. This is going to confuse people, I believe. And it's also going to divide the community. It really is. I'm standing up before you. I'm supporting the chief's policy, but I support the immigrants. Believe me, probably more than anybody in this room, or as much as anybody in this room. I have so much respect. I have a lot of friends in that community that I care for, and so I don't know the necessity of this. I want to know who's authored this. Is this authored by the same, by Mr. Canty, who his policy was rejected? Is we trying to circumvent that? And we're coming before we have Mr. DeSloge standing up here to circumvent his loss of his policy? These are my questions. So I think this is, I think it's something that we already solved at a meeting a few weeks ago.
Mr. Bletzer, your 3 minutes has
Okay,
expired. If you
that's
could
all.
wrap up in 1 minute.
I can ask some questions later. If not, I understand completely.
Again, there won't be an open question and answer period, but Mr. Dislojas can feel free to answer those questions
Well,
during his
yeah,
presentation.
hopefully he can just hear what he's saying. He can answer while he's giving his presentation. I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Deb Etzel, 31 Island Rock. The difference between a town, a department policy and a town bylaw is the town bylaw stands when the people in the department change. So a bylaw stays in effect. A policy can be changed as if the chief is changed. So I feel that we need something that's stronger in our community so that we have a community-wide understanding of how we want to proceed. There's nothing in the bylaw that keeps the police from doing their job. There's nothing in the bylaw that keeps ICE from doing their job. It does keep them from getting out of hand. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the room who'd like to give a public comment?
Good evening. I'm Meredith Loring Golden, and I am here to support the community trust bylaw. And I feel very strongly that we have to support America's democracy within our town. Plymouth is a very special place. My own ancestors came here more than 400 years ago, many lines of them in 1620. And since then, Plymouth has been welcoming new arrivals over the past 400 years. And I think it's more than just saying we support you. I think most people in this country do support the people that have struggled to get here. But we have to do something concrete, I feel. And we have to stand by America's democracy, which ensures under the Constitution that we cannot deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. And this is what we've seen violated in other places. And I think Plymouth can show the way on this. Don't think it's going to be a magnet for in Massachusetts for others to come and demonstrate against it. I think it's so important to stand by our neighbors who have contributed to this group and this community and to our country to make it better. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room who'd like to give a public comment? Is there anyone online? Last chance. Folks in the room? All right, we're going to move on then. Our next agenda item is appointments to the CANS Committee, the Climate Action Net Zero Committee. We have two terms, one that expires June 30th of this year, and another term that expires June 30th of next year, 2027. We have two applicants, Michael Lasnik and Alan Giles. Is Mr. Lasnik in the room? Is Mr. Lasnik online? Okay. Is Mr. Giles in the room? Is Mr. Giles online? Pleasure of the board.
I would suggest that we re-advertise the position and invite these individuals to reapply and attend the, attend the subsequent appointment hearing. I think we have a general practice of, unless it is in an admin note, not appointing people to ones that make an agenda, that do not show up. And while there are two vacancies on the Climate Action Net Zero Committee, and obviously maintaining a quorum is important, I do not think it is in our interest to appoint people without seeing or hearing from them, because they may not be a good fit. And I think that it is important that we be able to interview them. So that would be my proposal.
Jay, did you hear from either of them that they wouldn't be attending tonight? No, the answer is no. Is there any objections to Mr. Canty's proposal? Mr. Cohen?
Just a
During the application process, when you go online to fill out the request to be appointed, is there any notice to people to be prepared to come before the board?
Not in the application itself, I don't believe.
But do you usually?
One, I reach out to them at least a week before the meeting to let them know that they're expected to be here or remote. And at least one of these two applicants confirmed that he, after missing the last appointment cycle, wanted to keep his application on file.
Okay, so there is an attempt by staff to reach out to these people to know that they should be present. Okay, all right, so I agree with Kevin that we should reach back out to them, see if we can get them in here.
Any objections? All right, Jade, if you wouldn't mind re-advertising, reaching out to those folks, we would appreciate it. Next item on our agenda is Article 2, the revolving fund spending limits. We're joined by Lynn Barrett, Finance Director. Ms. Barrett?
Good evening. So this article request to be put on the warrant is a standard recurring article that happens every year. This particular article establishes the spending thresholds for all of the revolving accounts that have been previously added to our bylaw. So all of these accounts currently exist. Most of them are operating, and each department has submitted a request for their spending threshold for fiscal '27. So that's what this article would accomplish. And we appreciate your support to put it on the warrant.
Mr. Canty?
So Lynn, I know the answer to this, but just for people's education at home. So a revolving fund versus the operating budget or free cash or an enterprise fund, we may not actually spend money in these. We're just authorized to spend up to this limit. And you're only spending money that comes in through one of the sources and means that replenish the fund. So if a fund has a spending limit of $100,000, but it receives $125,000 in a year, it can only spend $100,000, correct?
That's correct. Unless during the fiscal year, they have to go before your board.
Right.
And advisory and finance to request an increase in that spending limit.
Right.
And that happens occasionally.
And then conversely, if it has a $100,000 spending limit, but they only take in $75,000, they can only spend 75 unless they have a reserve
That's
from prior
correct.
years,
Yep.
correct?
They
Okay,
can only spend 75. Doesn't matter about prior year balance. The prior year balance will roll forward,
right.
but their spending authorization, they can only spend.
They can
that
just, but if
amount.
they had, in that scenario, they had 100,000 authorization, they earned 75, and they had leftover money
Yep,
prior year.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
okay. But so these, and the materials that we have list the ways that these funds are sourced and what comes into the funds and what they're actually used for as well, correct?
that's correct. Yeah, so the bylaw, there's a copy of the table that's included in the bylaw. So it'll identify the name of the fund, the name of the department that is authorized to, maintain and operate that fund. It identifies the funding sources for that fund. It identifies the expenditures that can be spent out of that fund. And that kind of thing. So, and then each department submits a backup memo that requests, what they want as their spending threshold. We also have to provide to you a spreadsheet that gives the prior year's activity in that fund, the balance, the revenue, the expenditures, the balance at the end of the fund, at the end of the year. And then, we also provide the first 6 months' activity, so July through December is also in that table. So we have to report that to town meeting.
And without getting into the minutia of the individual funds, the source of the money and the expenditure are usually rationally related to each other. For example, there's lost materials in the library. The funds that come in from that are used to replenish the library collection to buy new books and other things.
Yes.
So they're targeted in that way as opposed to being unrelated sources and uses.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Pleasure of the board.
I would make a motion to include Article 2 in the spring town meeting warrant and recommend that town meeting approve it.
Mr. Canty makes a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Iaquinto seconds. Is there further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Quintel?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Myself, yes.
Thank you for your
Thank you, Ms.
support.
Barrett. Unless there's objection from my colleagues, I'd like to skip my own presentation and move on to the articles that are being presented by citizens petition. Is there any objection to taking things out of order?
Well, how long do you think your presentation would be left to its own devices?
Not very long, but I'd rather give the folks who are here and not required to sit on this dais some time.
I guess my only hesitation would be that people that wish to view these items may be anticipating that they'll come later in the agenda and that moving them up without notice may cause them to miss some of the meeting that they're interested in watching.
I'm happy to give my presentation. It'll be brief, but what do you folks wish to do?
Your agenda.
Is it on the agenda for,
It's Article 35.
right, and what was the reservation that you had?
I just wanted to give the folks who are here for citizens petitions the opportunity to go.
Oh, okay. So,
And my hesitation is that people that received this agenda and are planning their evening around observing these items may be anticipating that these items would be coming slightly later and not be tuning in yet.
but I think it's as long as you're not doing it any earlier,
Exactly.
I think that you have that you have that option to move something later in the agenda, as long as it's not coming earlier. I think it wouldn't be coming earlier. If we moved it up in the agenda, that would be a problem.
We are moving 2 items up and moving 1 back.
Oh, okay, what you're saying. All right. Okay, sorry.
I think we've now spoken about it longer than it'll take me to make my
Yeah,
presentation.
you could have been done by now, David.
So what I'll do is I'll just move forward with my presentation. Sorry to the folks who are here by citizens petition. So next item on our agenda is Article 35. This is a presentation that I'd like to make at town meeting, requesting that the town support the adoption of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 33, Section 59. This section of the general law authorizes municipalities to grant up to 40 days of paid leave, paid military time during each year for an employee who serves in either the armed forces of the Commonwealth or in a reserve component of the armed forces of the United States. The folks here have the full entry of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 33, Section 59. It's also in our packet, which is online. So if folks want to go and take a look at that, you're welcome to do so. Currently, when our employees serve in the National Guard or in the reserve component, the town pays the difference between what the military pays them for their drill, their training time, whatever it is that they're on site for, and what we pay them as part of their salary. However, at the same time, the town budgets for their entire salary each year. The adoption of the statute would, I think, formalize and strengthen the commitment that we make to eligible employees in giving them additional time off without having to use their accrued time off to get their full pay from the town. This measure would be budget neutral. As I said, the town already budgets for and appropriates the full salary for each of those employees. Providing paid training leave under Section 59 doesn't create any additional salary obligations. It simply clarifies what our policy is. At present, there are 8 town employees who qualify under this provision. 7 of them are from the fire department. One of them.
I'm retiring in April, so this
well,
won't apply to me.
So I will amend my memo for town meeting, but the town manager has decided to move up his retirement from the military.
That's right.
Last I heard it was December, but now it's going to be in April. So there'll be 7 members of the fire department who would benefit from this. Each of these individuals balances municipal service, military commitment. I think we should honor their service. So that's why I'm asking us to give a favorable vote to this article. And with that, I'll take questions. Ms. Iaquinto?
Yeah, I really like this proposal. I'm just curious how many other communities have already adopted it. Do we have any idea?
I don't know. I do know that other communities in Massachusetts have adopted it. But I don't have that number
Okay.
offhand.
Is this a relatively new regulation that they
I don't
put in
think so.
place, or is it-
I
no,
think
it's been
this is
around for a
valid.
while.
It's been around for at least 20 years that I'm
Oh,
aware
wow,
of.
okay,
Yeah.
so we're playing catch up on it, okay.
Other questions? Mr. Canty?
So this would give them up to 40 days of paid military training leave without loss of ordinary remuneration, enabling them to collect their full pay while fulfilling it.
Mhm.
So right now, when Derek, since he's retiring, so I can use him as an example, when Derek's out on drill, say it's a Friday, he's not being paid his full salary that day from us. He's being paid some from the military and some from us. Is that correct, Derek?
That's correct.
And right now you don't get a leave day for that.
Right. So in order to get your full pay, you'd have to take a vacation day or, depending on the collective bargaining agreement, an earned day.
So the delta between your daily rate in the military and your town daily rate, so that balance that the town isn't paying you because the military is, right now, does that flow into free cash at the
Yes.
end of the year?
That's right. There'd be a balance in the wages line item for that particular individual, and that would flow to free cash.
So I'm not necessarily opposed to this still, because it's still a relatively small amount of money, but I do think it is not entirely budget neutral based on that, just because it does flow into free cash, which is then used for capital items in the following year and other one-time expenses. So I don't think there's not enough people to make it a huge difference, but I do think that should be,
Sure.
particularly while we're talking about the budget, what goes into it, where
Yeah.
it flows.
Yeah, I mean, it's budget neutral in the sense that it doesn't change what we raise and appropriate. Because the
Well-
town's gonna raise and appropriate the same amount each year for those salary lines regardless.
But next year, if we have less free cash and we still need a certain amount of cruisers, we might need to raise and appropriate for those cruisers versus paying them with free cash. So it wouldn't affect you in the given year, but it could affect you next year.
Yeah, that's all things though, in reality. And I would ask a follow-up question, Derek, if the department, for example, the fire department, has needs for like overtime, does this money get used for overtime? Or does it all always flow back to free cash? Or is it all just one?
Any
salary?
balance left in any line item at the end of the fiscal year flows to free cash.
Yeah, and their overtime line item is a different line item too. So their salaries is different than their overtime.
Right, but could that money be moved from salaries to overtime?
It could be
Within
used
the
for that
year,
purpose,
could be-
yes.
Could be transferred within the year.
Yeah, so I mean, it could be utilized for purposes in that year.
It definitely could be used, for, like you said, overtime.
Yeah, so I mean, yes, there's a distinction, and I'm happy to clarify that for town meeting.
Okay, that's all I'm
Yeah.
requesting. Thank you.
Further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call, well, actually, there's no motion.
I will make a motion to, with the noted updates to the memorandum, to include Article 35 in the warrant and recommend that town meeting approve it.
Mr. Canty makes the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Iaquinto seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Mr. Quintel?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
And myself, yes. All right, we'll now move on to the citizens petition articles. Article 36, a citizens petition for the Billington Sea seaweed treatment. Anna Roderick and others are joining us at the podium.
Anna's not here, but my name is Christy.
Hello, Christy.
Hi. I am here on behalf of the Billington Sea Townbrook Watershed Association, and we are requesting the allocation of $28,492.32 towards the weed management treatment at Billington Sea. This sum reflects the town's ownership of 45% of the property, while the association raises 55% of the cost through dues and additional contributions by Billington residents. The Billington Sea Management Program consists of yearly water quality testing, monitoring fish kills, weed growths, and also herbicide treatments. We specifically monitor for the invasive weed fanwort. The previous 2 treatments, as well as our next treatment, will use the herbicide Sonar, which has been approved by Conservation and Heritage. Sonar can be applied up to 25 parts per billion at the point of intake for water supplies and is often used on reservoirs. And the treatment that we would do would be at 15 parts per billion. 6 to 7 years is the expected time frame between treatments, and we're approaching year 8. So we are requesting this allocation now because we're at the tipping point of where we'll start to see negative impacts on the pond, as well as the aquatic wildlife. The continuity of the management program is an important part of the maintenance program, as we can only expect costs to increase each year and budgets to get tighter. We do have images here. The top image is Billington before we started the management program, which has been going on for decades. And the bottom pictures are after our treatments and management, so you can see the difference. We've got thick green mats here. You can see Little Pond and then the ocean for comparison. And then now down here, we're clear and healthy pond. And this actually is also an overhead photo. We had weed assessments done in September of 2024. And this is the western basin of Billington Sea with all of the hash marks. That's where we have really dense fanwort. That's where the concentration of the weed is right now. So that's where we do apply the Sonar to treat the pond systemically. And then I think I have one more actually here too. And these are images. I do have a printout if you guys would like. They're images from our assessment, which will just show the weeds that were, well, it's worse now since this was done a year and a half ago. But we have the fanwort as well as just some algae photos that are there just for reference.
Thank you, folks. Questions? Ms. Iaquinto?
So this is, just to be clear, to clarify, this is to continue a maintenance program that's been in existence for decades, I think I heard you say?
Yes. So
Okay.
the association was organized, I want to say in the 70s, and we've been working alongside the town since then.
And who does the testing and the maintenance of it? Is it the DEP or is it the town?
No, so the association, we do the yearly water testing. So we collect samples and we bring them to, it's Envirotech Laboratories down in Sandwich. So they do the water testing yearly. The assessment is done, this was done by Water and Wetland, and we have done the treatments through them or through people that work there, as well as a company called Solitude. So they've both been involved with assessing and treating.
Okay. And then the funding that you're requesting, would that be for, like, to continue the maintenance program for just another year and then you'd be back? Is this an annual thing or is it?
Yeah, it's not annual. The board or the association does cover the yearly testing. So this would be towards an actual application of the treatment, which is done typically a couple of treatments are done at once, which lasts about 7 years.
Oh, okay.
So
we wouldn't be in front of you for quite some time again.
Thank,
Mr. Canty?
So thank you. Obviously, the water quality in our ponds is important, particularly our more significant ponds, although all of them are important in their own way, and they are a porthole into the aquifer beneath our feet, which provides our drinking water and is vital to the integrity of the community long term. We recently had a groundwater discharge discussion about some of the disparate impacts that people's private septics are having on ponds in different areas of Plymouth. Particularly notable issues have come up in South Plymouth and West Plymouth, like Billington Sea, over the last several years, and it is a lot of it is caused, some of it is road runoff, but a lot of it is also people's private septic tanks, and the leach fields and everything coming out of that. So I think it is timely that you are before us in this regard, because the only way to reduce the number of septics in the community is to increase the sewer network. The only way to increase that is to have a plant that can discharge at sufficient capacity. So, and then it's easier to treat one sewage plant appropriately for phosphorus and nitrogen than it is thousands of individual septic tanks. So I think that's an important thing to highlight, not so much for your presentation, but for the community as a whole, because with the number of ponds that we have, this amount of testing in the aggregate would get pretty expensive. So a wider solution would be cheaper and more preferable. Having said that, I do think you need to specify a funding source for the money. We can't modify a citizen's petition article, but FinCom makes the main motion at town meeting, so they could specify a funding source, or you could make a motion on town meeting floor to specify a funding source. I don't know in the past where it's come from, if it's been free cash, or if, David Gould's department may have a fund that could be utilized, but identifying the specific funding source is something that's important. It's not a Herculean task, but just something to keep in mind as the process continues. So I would encourage you to reach out to Energy and Environment to see if there are any dedicated funds that would be appropriate for this use. And if not, then to have someone make a motion to do it from free cash. But I do intend to support the article and will recommend a town meeting support it, because I do think it is important to take care of these issues throughout the community. Ideally, we'll come up with a wider solution that will prevent as opposed to treat, but for now, it is important to treat. Thank you.
Do you know where the funding sources come from in the past? Mr. Leary, she's looking in your direction. We're being joined at the microphone by Mr. Michael Leary, who has had quite a history with this particular subject.
Yeah, I was their president for 20-some years, I think. Anyways, in the past, I think it'd come out as part of the general funds, to be honest with you. When I wrote the article, I had wrote for the, the appropriate. I didn't put raise, because that would be for the tax, So I wasn't really sure. Lynn and I spoke about it afterwards. She says, "Oh, you should have asked me first." Well, it's kind of late for that. So anyways, but in the past, I believe it was out of the general fund. Yeah.
So the intention of the article is not to have this hit the tax rate, but rather be appropriated
Right.
from another funding source?
Yes.
That's helpful. I agree with Mr. Canty. We should identify that. You happen to be a town meeting member.
Yeah.
Would you commit if the FinCom doesn't
I'd make a motion, for sure.
Very good.
And, it is, again, is over the 20 years, we worked with the town. We stopped the sources of phosphorus that was coming in. Phosphorus gets stuck in the groundwater, so we get more nitrogen from the groundwater. And that's where the problem comes from, is the weeds tend to grow, they use a lot of nitrogen. So that has been our problem. So we've had this clear water for probably about 15 years. When I started, you could put a Secchi disc down, get down 6 inches, and you couldn't see the disc. That's a black and white disc. Now, we never have a second disc reading that's below 4 or 5 feet. So, and most of the time, we can see down, actually,
That's not the shallow, that's
Yeah.
only 4 feet deep.
on the aerials, when I had the aerials done for the now, couple of residents said, well, what's that red and white there? Actually, we found a boat that was sunk there for a hell of a lot of years. It was amazing. Everybody go, wow, it's been here all this time. So,
May have contributed to the murkiness of the water.
yeah, and to make it short, basically, this is just maintenance. What happens is the pond gets out of balance, and the PR ratio, photosynthesis versus respiration, gets out of balance. We lose fish more in the whole population rather than during the spring with stratification only at the bottom. That's happening. It's not real out bad yet, but it's getting there. And we can also tell by what the weeds we're taking out around the pond itself. So with that, we decided, it's time, and with budgets getting worse, and of course, now, each time we go back, the price is up. So that's why we come for you for the request for the timing. And I would promise to make that motion if it.
Thank you, Mr. Leary. Mr. Cohen?
No, Michael, thank you very much. I know how much you and others have worked over the years to keep this on the front burner for the town and for the community. It's obviously a place where a lot of people visit, not only live there and recreate there. So thank you for all that effort. And it was helpful for you to go over where the source of these problems are coming from. Do you see any other funding sources that are out there that can grants that can be sought to help aggressively mitigate the issue? Because it does seem like it persists and it requires this constant attention. Thank God you're there to do that. But
Right.
at some point, have you looked into other agencies that might?
Yes, over time we have. One of the things now that our main problem back then was the algae blooms.
Yeah.
When we cut down all the nutrients and stuff, actually the pond balances itself out through Mother Nature.
Yeah.
And the decomposition at the bottom of the pond. So basically, that problem is, unless something changes, is
Right.
kind of dealt with almost permanently. I mean, we have to keep an eye on it. But the weeds, that's a whole different situation. That comes in through the groundwater. That would be a harder one. The sources, I'll tell you honestly, you know what budgets are like. And I don't have to tell you guys that. So honestly, you'll see a lot of times we get things from the DEP, they'll say, there's funding for this. But when you go to apply, it's there, but there's no funding yet. You know what I mean? So we do keep an eye on that, and we do try. And like I say, this is just part of a maintenance plan, now.
Yeah, over the years that we've been able to acquire land at Black Cat Road and other pieces of property to help with,
Yes, we
mitigate the
did.
nitrogen.
And you were
load.
involved in all those,
But it
so,
was there was a lot of grant writing with David Gould to secure those
Yes.
headwaters. We call it the Town Brook headwaters.
Yeah.
Land acquisition. So I'm glad the neighborhood is taking, the effort that you have over the last 20 years. So.
and that's the thing, and
Thank you very much.
that's the important thing is, the association staying together and keeping this thing going, because actually, like I say, the residents put up, what is it?
55%.
55%, and, the town, so basically, the way we figured out is this is what the percentage of the land the town owns. So basically, we're just asking the town to pony up for their share.
That's important to note. The town is a butter of this pond too.
Yeah.
Not only Morton Park and Little Pond, but they also have
The Crowley
frontage.
Preserve, and
Yeah, Crawley Preserve, Crawley Woodland Preserve. Yep, thank you.
Other questions from the board? Well, thank you folks for being here to present tonight. For the benefit of folks in the audience and at home, the board doesn't get to decide whether or not this is going on the town meeting warrant, but we can make a recommendation to town meeting as to whether or not we think they should approve it. So with that, I'll take a motion from the board, if such a motion exists.
I'll make a motion that the board approves Article 36.
Second.
The spring town meeting.
Is the motion that we recommend town meeting approve?
Correct.
Is your second maintained, Mr. Quinto?
Yes.
Very good. Further discussion? I'll just note, Mr. Leary has committed to making a motion to identify a specific funding source unless FinCom does so in advance. With that, I'll be able to support that motion. Any further discussion? Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Mr. Quinto?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
And myself, yes. You have a favorable recommendation from the
Thank
select board.
you.
Next is Citizens Petition Article number 37, the Plymouth Community Trust Bylaw. We're being joined by Arthur Desloges and others. Mr. Desloges, the floor is yours.
This okay? Okay, thank you. Good evening. I am Art Desloges, representing the petitioners of the Plymouth Community Trust Bylaw. I am joined by my colleagues, Kristen Thomas from Together We Can, and Peter Matlin from the Plymouth for All Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to address you, and I thank the community for again showing up and supporting this bylaw. Tonight, my remarks will first provide a brief status on the evolution, so to speak, of this bylaw, and secondly, why it should be enacted at town meeting. So first, based on the January 7th Select Board meeting, I believe we are all in broad agreement that we must continue to build trust between town officials, including Plymouth law enforcement and all members of the community. To ensure a unified Plymouth government approach, the original bylaw was amended to clarify that it is totally congruent with current Select Board procedures and police procedures as well. These changes were made out of an abundance of caution and in deference to the Select Board and to the Police Department. Today, we were notified by the town moderator that after consultation with town council, this amended version is now out of scope and cannot be voted at town meeting. I assure you, the original filed version of the bylaw still ensures that Plymouth law enforcement shall continue to investigate and pursue all criminal matters in all circumstances. I'm going to repeat that. The original filed version of the bylaw ensures that Plymouth law enforcement shall continue to investigate and pursue all criminal matters in all circumstances. Since the bylaw was copied from enacted bylaws of other municipalities that have already been approved and approved by the Attorney General, the petitioners are confident that the bylaw is legal. It is in full compliance with Massachusetts state law. So the petitioners will continue to bring the original filed bylaw to town meeting for a vote. Secondly, and more importantly, why is this bylaw needed? There are 4 core reasons. It guarantees rights to residents. Measures that address the most serious issue must originate from the highest elected legislative body in Plymouth. Enacting a law is the most impactful means to convey to residents that these issues are of the highest importance. It is a law that guarantees to every resident that their rights will be respected and backed by the full authority of Plymouth town government. It provides civilian rule. Plymouth must have elected civilian rule and oversight. Town meeting represents the will of the voters, not the decisions of town departments. History has taught us that without civilian oversight, the practices of government agencies and departments run amok by overreaching and because of the lack of a democratic process. Governments must have checks and balances. It is only by enacting laws that residents can have faith and trust in their government. It has durability. A bylaw is permanent until it is repealed by a vote at town meeting. Conversely, town departmental policies and procedures, including the police department, can be changed immediately without elected civilian oversight. This leaves them vulnerable to unforeseen political pressure and change of personnel. Similarly, a select board policy can be changed at any meeting by any 3 members, and these members may change in the May election. Provides an all-government unity approach similar to other municipalities. Building trust in the community will have more impact if the town acts in unity with one voice together. By enacting this bylaw, town meeting will join the select board and Plymouth law enforcement, where all 3 arms of government are acting in unison. In conclusion, this bylaw is the strongest legislative method that guarantees civilian rule and signifies that public safety and trust in Plymouth government are cornerstones of our bylaws. I urge you to support the bylaw, and at the pleasure of the chair, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the board? Mr. Canty?
Thank you, Mr. Disloges. Can you talk about some of the questions that people may have about how this would intersect with the select board policy that was passed? And I know you touched upon it in your presentation, but why, I just think it's important, if you're making your case, to emphasize why a town meeting, how a town meeting policy is different from a town meeting bylaw rather than a select board policy, and how they complement or contrast with each other in the operations of what's detailed.
Yeah, thank you. We reviewed the select board policy and the police procedures. We met with many people on the select board. We've met with the police chief as well. Materially and substantially, both the policy and the procedures offer the same protections, so to speak, to our residents. So I'm not here to say the petitioners support the adoption of the policy that the select board did, and the petitioners support the police procedures. Without them, they are needed to administrate the functions of what they do. Our reason for coming here is to say all 3 arms of government must work together, that we need to be in unison. And most important, it is only a bylaw that ensures legislative civilian rule. That is why we're here. We have all seen how departments and agencies run amok with when they think for whatever reasons, without civilian oversight. And that's principally what our argument is and why we're bringing it to the town meeting.
Thank you.
I'd like to follow up on that. Mr. Disloges, are you saying that the 5 of us are not civilians?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Are you saying that the 5 of us are not civilians?
No, I'm pretty sure I said highest legislative elected body.
Right, but your point is about civilian oversight. And this board spent quite a long night going over the proposal that came before us regarding this enforcement. And so in my estimation, we are providing civilian oversight. We put in measures that included an annual review of the select board, from the select board of the police department's policy. And if that policy were to change in advance of that annual review, it would be subject to review by the select board at that time. So to me, civilian oversight is happening. Can you comment?
So I take your point, okay. Let it read the highest legislative elected civilian oversight. So that would be the will of town meeting.
I think you said that one of the strengths you see of this is that it's enshrined and not subject to the changing politics of this board. Is that right?
Yes.
For me, one of the, I think, core components of why I was able to support the motion at our last meeting was that it enshrined the decision-making policy, the decision-making power in the command structure for the police. And circumstances change on the ground. I don't know, I can't speak for you folks, but I certainly haven't been a part of any law enforcement action myself. So I would want that decision-making authority to rest with those folks still, and not subject to the political leanings of a town meeting. I think that the way we have it structured right now, we provide civilian oversight, but we also allow for flexibility for changing circumstances. Do you care to comment?
Yeah, I still maintain that the highest legislative elected body is town meeting.
I would maintain that it's the only legislative body in
So
the town.
that is where I believe, in matters of the highest importance, like this one is, that it should go to that body and let them vote.
Well, it's definitely going to go to them for a vote. As I said in the last article, we don't get to decide whether or not this article goes to town meeting. It's going to town meeting. It's going to get its day in court. The question is whether or not this board is going to support a favorable recommendation to town meeting. We're going to say, should town meeting approve this or not? And from where I sit, I think we already made that decision on January 6th. We want to keep this in the hands of the police, but I could be wrong. My colleagues could go in a different direction.
So one last sentence.
Sure.
Plymouth must be a land of laws. They are made by town meeting. It's not the will of any group of select board people at any one point in time or any one town department. That's just the way the petitioners view this role of government.
Last question. I think one of the sticking points for us when we met last month was whether or not the chief would have to change his policy based on his contract. If this were to pass at town meeting, and maybe this is actually a question for town staff, do you think the chief would have to align his policy permanently with this? Or would this chief or a future chief have the authority to change the enforcement based on his or her contract?
So I can't answer for the chief, but it was intentionally, the bylaw was intentionally written so that no changes would be needed with police procedures. When it was first drafted, it was copied. Every provision was copied from an existing bylaw that's been enacted and approved by the Attorney General. That was a deliberate strategy, because we did not want people to come up and say, that's not legal, or you're going to have to not do this or do that. There were many, many, many things that people wanted to put in the bylaw that were further protections for what we're talking about. But the rule was, we're only putting in what's already enacted, so that when we come to talk to you, we can say this, that's why we're confident it's legal.
And I'm not saying it's not legal. I guess I would ask Mr. Brindisi, if this were to pass and this or a future chief their policy were not lined up with this bylaw, could we be facing a situation like Attorney McKay expressed concern over, where we might have conflicting policies?
Yeah, so I'd start by saying that you pointed out in the chief has a 5-year employment contract, and there's a section within his contract that the chief sets the rules and regulations for the department. So if this proposed bylaw were to conflict with his regulations, that is what Attorney McKay has stated in the past is concern. And the chief has stated in the past, his concern is that if his rules and regulations do conflict with this, the message to the police officers is confusing. And officers would then question, do they enforce the chief's rules or do they enforce the bylaw?
Thank you. I may have further questions, but I'd like to give the floor back to my colleagues. Is there anyone else who has a question for Mr. Disloges? No further questions. Thank you, folks, for your
I'm happy to
presentation.
answer any questions at the pleasure of
We're
the
not going to
chair.
do a back and forth between
Thank you.
the folks in attendance.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Pleasure of the board, Mr. Canty.
I do think, given that at town meeting, non-town meeting members, by the procedural rules of town meeting, are functionally barred from speaking. It's technically possible, but it's challenging to do that. There are members of the public in attendance here that may or may not wish to speak, but I think there would be a value in giving them there was comments about potentially opening up public comment again. We did that previously on this topic in another setting. And since members of the public that are in attendance, either physically or virtually, will functionally be unable to speak on town meeting floor, I would make an advocation that we open up the floor for people to give their comments on this issue.
Sure. Is there anyone in the public in attendance who did not give a public comment earlier in the meeting who would like to say something on this matter? Mr. Cirque, although he's a town meeting member and will get to speak.
Rich Cirque, town meeting member, precinct 2. I don't understand why a regulation promulgated by the police chief, if in conflict with a bylaw adopted by town meeting, would be able to supersede the bylaw enacted by town meeting. The bylaw enacted by town meeting is the law in Plymouth. And I don't think that a regulation promulgated by the police chief can override it. It's as simple as that. It's not a contest between equals. The bylaw adopted by town meeting is until and unless otherwise deemed to be inapplicable or illegal, is the law of Plymouth. I don't think the police chief is at liberty to act otherwise.
Thank you, Mr. Cirque. Is there anyone else who's present who has not given? Ms. Davis, although another town meeting member?
Ginny Davis, town meeting, precinct 4. I think just the clarity here, what Art has said is a bylaw is voted in enactment, and it can't be changed because the winds of fate change, either the select board or the police. We want something to protect our citizens, all of our, I should say, residents of Plymouth. That's what I see it, that's the bylaw, and that's the really change in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to give a public comment who has not already done so? Please come on up.
I simply think this is very
Can you
important.
introduce yourself for the record, please?
My name is Ann Quill from Great Island in Plymouth. I simply think it's very important to pass this bylaw. I don't think I would like to have a police department that wasn't supportive of this bylaw. I think it's important to pass it financially and also for the welfare of all of our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room? Please come up and introduce yourself.
Hi, is that good? Lisa Hamilton, Precinct 2. Not a town meeting member, maybe one of the only ones. I just wanted to state that part of why I support the bylaw is that it standardizes expectations outside of the police, excuse me, outside of the police department. I think all folks who work for the town need to be clear and guarded from decisions they may make in interaction with any other controversial bodies, whether it's ICE or anybody else. And I feel like what this bylaw does is provide some standards for everyone who is employed by the town and protects them and reduces confusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room? Please come up and introduce yourself.
Good evening. I'm Jerry Sicardo, Precinct 2. I've got a couple of comments. I guess first and foremost, from where I sit, it seems to me that the police work for the people and you all work for the people. Why do we want to give the chief of police an authority greater than the authority we've given you? Seems to me to be contradictory for the reason to your being here. Secondly, I think it's important for Plymouth to make a statement as to where we stand as a community to the deplorable actions that are potential to happen in this town or anywhere in this country. And as this is the hometown, if I may, I think we should be standing on a higher order for what we really stand for and believe, as opposed to just putting up with the nonsense that might befall us. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room? Come on up and introduce yourself. Just a note on the room setup. For next week's meeting, can we have an aisle between these seats? Thank you. Make things easier for people to get in and out.
Dennis Friedman, I live in Precinct 15. So I know that you don't want to have a back and forth discussion. I understand that. But I would be interested that when the vote does come, should any of the select board be opposed to this bylaw, that you would explain why that is. And hopefully that would not be because of the concern of policies that might be promulgated by the police chief or anyone else in town government that would contravene a bylaw of the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak? Please come up and introduce yourself when there's space for you to do so.
My name is Kim Patterson. I live in Precinct 15. I'm going to embarrass myself. I don't know rules, regulations, policies. I don't know any of that stuff. I can only tell you how I feel. I'm a grandmother, a mother, and I watch all these communities that are behind the ball, watching how certain organizations in our federal government are acting and what power those communities have to counteract when they go too far. So when I look at you, when I look at the police chief, I don't know the systems. All I know is you're supposed to protect us. And I'm hoping that we can get as much proactive protection as we can. That's really all it comes down to. I don't want to be driving down the street with my granddaughter, she's 6, and have her all of a sudden see people bail out of these big SUVs and tear people out of cars, and I don't want that. My oldest granddaughter's going to be voting next year. It has never been my dream to have her walk into a polling place with people with guns outside. And I'm not saying it would happen here, but I'm saying these things are happening around our country. In Maine, they just had people taking pictures of license plates. And when the citizens come up and say, "What are you doing?" they say, "See you next week, sweetheart." And you don't even know who they are. You are our protection. I love the citizen-led, because what I think we're seeing is that when we have agencies that run amok and it's too narrow at the top to stop them, we need this kind of setup. Personally, that's what makes me feel safest. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak? You've already spoken.
Sandra Hammond, I live in precinct 18, and my father is a town meeting member. I just wanted to say, sort of validate what Mr. Serkey said, and also that he is an attorney with 45 years' experience. So if we're looking at police procedure versus a municipal bylaw voted by town meeting, in my opinion, is more democratic with, what, almost 100 members, I'm not sure. So I just want to say that I think we can give his comment about the legal distinction some weight.
Thank you. Anyone else who has not spoken? Come on up.
All right. I'm Peter Matlin. I chair the Plymouth for All Committee. I want to make just 2 points. One, as Art indicated, the current bylaws have been intentionally designed to align with what was approved by the Select Board on January the 6th. And it requires no changes in procedure or policies at the level of the Plymouth Police Department. So we are not dealing with creating confusion with some alternative framework that is being presented that could conflict with what you approved on January the 6th. The second point, the Plymouth for All Committee has been following these issues very closely over more than a year. We've had an opportunity to meet with secular and religious leaders in the immigrant communities of Plymouth, particularly in North Plymouth, but beyond. What we have heard is frightening. People are afraid. Their lives have been disrupted. They're afraid to go to church, afraid to go to school, afraid to go to their jobs. But the fear that I'm most concerned about, they are afraid of the Plymouth Police Department. They are afraid to report crimes for fear that if they're in a mixed status household, somebody in their home would be taken away. They're afraid to provide witness accounts of crimes that have occurred. So we have perpetrators in this community that are free. Why? Because the people are afraid of the Plymouth Police Department to work with them. So this is a risk to public safety, not just for public safety of the people in the immigrant communities, all of us, because there are perpetrators out there that are not being apprehended because their crimes aren't even being reported. So the Plymouth for All Committee, again, has been following this for more than a year. We have been following the evolution of the bylaws. They align very closely with the 12 recommendations that we submitted to you on November the 4th. So we are very supportive of what Art Dislodgins has presented. We took a unanimous roll call vote in support of the bylaw. I would urge the Select Board to please recommend this article for approval at the town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to be heard? I see Mr. Abbott's hand raised, I believe, online. Mr. Abbott, if you could unmute yourself and give your public comment. Some Zoom technical difficulties getting Mr. Abbott into the panel. Once he's in, he can unmute himself and give his public comment. Mr. Abbott, I believe you're in the room. Please give your comment.
Yes, I'm able, I think I'm unmuted at this point, right?
You are.
Yeah, I just want to say that this is a huge issue for Plymouth. These poor folks living in terror of being snatched or taken from their homes. I mean, rarely do we get an issue of this substance, this magnitude. And I think that the bylaw gives the folks protection that this is not going to be changed by a future select board or a police chief or whatever. And the town meeting in this town is supreme. And if the town meeting passes this bylaw, it will govern, with no question. And I think this is what and this is why I signed the petition to have this bylaw adopted by the town meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Abbott. Is there anyone else online who wishes to give a public comment? All right. Anyone else in the room? Final chance? All right, I'll bring it back to the board. Further
Thank you
questions?
for opening up the discussion.
Of course. Further questions? Pleasure of the board.
I would make a motion to recommend Article 37 for approval to Springtown meeting.
Mr. Cohen makes a motion to recommend the town meeting approve Article 37. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Iaquinto seconds. Discussion? Mr. Canty?
So I think this is obviously a matter of significant public interest in the community. Although we have taken initiatives over the last year to increase attendance with on-the-road meetings, we have not, and those have been largely well attended. We have never seen, in my 3 years on the board, as many people show up for and against the proposal on January 6th. And I think that it is important as a community that is concerned about this issue, whichever side you may be on, that that issue is discussed publicly. I think that is, no matter whether you agree with my position on this issue or disagree, it is fundamental to democracy that these types of issues are discussed in a public forum and that elected representatives and civilian oversight be maintained over these types of important issues. I think that what the select board did was what the select board could do. The select board sets policy for the executive branch agencies within and departments within our purview. And I think town meeting has a role to play here too. Town meeting has the ability to pass bylaws. The select board cannot do that. Town meeting bylaws can only be repealed by town meeting. A select board policy put forward by a board now can be repealed by any future select board. There are positives and negatives to both of those facts, but I think that there is a benefit to having a bylaw and a policy that right now line up. I think it is important to highlight that the day after the hearing that we had, that was well attended with a lot of discussion, we saw actions and conduct in Minneapolis that led to the death of an individual. A couple weeks later, the death of another individual. We continue to see abuses and line crossing and the treading on constitutional rights of citizens and non-citizens alike through this federal immigration policy from an agency that is better funded than the Canadian military. And we are facing our own budgetary issues. And I think, as was alluded to by Mr. Matlin, there is a public harm created by having a lack of trust in your local police department and local officials, that you can't go out to them and talk to them. And I think that Plymouth's priority, in my opinion, should be focusing on local issues, and we should leave immigration enforcement issues to federal agencies, and we should work within the federal system to address the policies. We can't do anything. Town meeting nor the select board can do anything about federal immigration law, but we do not have to participate in what is going on. And we can draw a line and say that this town stands up for the residents of this town, regardless of national origin. And we want all people to feel safe and be able to avail themselves of services when and if they need them. When we did, just for the public's knowledge, when we did pass the policy on the 6th of January, that policy addressed the conduct of police department employees. I have since, as I said I would on January 6th, adapt what my original policy was going to be to apply to non-Plymouth police employees, but town employees. That has been submitted to town council for review, and I'm sure I will bring that up later in the meeting, but that will be something that this board can enact consistent with what we talked about on January 6th. I don't think we talked about it on January 6th sufficiently, and we talked about what that would look like in terms of the meets and bounds, so I don't think it needs to be as formal as these two items, because we have talked about that. But I do think it's important to note that has been followed through on. Because I want, while the Plymouth Police are the most likely to interact with ICE, there are others, town departments, like the fire department that often assists the police, the DPW that often works with the police on certain things, like details or traffic perimeters. And there are important reasons to have a policy that applies to non-Plymouth police employees as well. But I think town meeting is the best place to have a further discussion about the merits of this approach and whether town meeting members agree or disagree with not just the text of the bylaw, but also what the select board did. There are going to be town meeting members that are in favor of this bylaw as a belt and suspenders approach to the select board policy. There are going to be those that are opposed to the bylaw because of the existence of the select board policy. There are going to be town meeting members that are opposed to both the bylaw and the select board policy. All of those factors will play out on town meeting floor. I think it was important, and I'm glad we did open public comment here so that members of the public who wouldn't procedurally have been able to speak at town meeting, because town meeting members get preference and can close debate at any time. I do think it was of tremendous value to hear from residents, particularly non-town meeting members, although the town meeting members are valuable as well. But this is an important issue, and I certainly don't think it's been a waste of our time. I find that to be, I don't know what we're supposed to spend time on if it's not things that we can get 2 rooms full of people to come out and say what their opinion is. We had a budget hearing the next week that was sparsely attended, and people wanted to talk about the budget, but they wanted us to do it. You know, they wanted to come and talk about this. And we're a big enough community and a large enough community with enough going on that we need to be able to chew gum and walk. And I think it is important to both address our budgetary situation and our fiscal situation, as well as issues like this that come up. We cannot put our head in the sand and only do what we thought we were going to do when we ran for election 3 years ago. So we have to deal with the issues that present us in this world and in this country. And I think we have done that, and I look forward to town meeting doing that as well. So thank you.
Ms. Iaquinto?
First of all, I want to applaud all of you. This was such a tremendous grassroots effort to move this bylaw to the point that where it is today. And we've seen, and thankfully in the last couple of weeks, what grassroots efforts have been able to do across the country and moving the needle ever so slightly to start to make a difference in federal immigration enforcement activities. So thank you all. And I know that this was a huge team effort across the community. Together We Can, Plymouth for All, Indivisible Plymouth, League of Women Voters. I know I'm leaving out many, but thank you all for bringing this forward and to the point where we're having this, as Mr. Canty said, this critically important discussion. I support all of the principles behind the bylaw. It's incredibly important to me that everybody in this community feels safe, that nobody is afraid to go to work or send their kids to school. Dead stop. That needs to happen. And I do believe that the efforts of this community and this group are really helping us to achieve that for everybody who lives in Plymouth, regardless of their immigration strategy. I also agree that the work that we did here on January 6th was some of the most valuable work that I know that I've done in my short tenure here on the select board, but it's one that I'm very proud of. I'm proud of all of us, and I'm proud of the work that we did and what we were able to accomplish at that meeting. We left that meeting with a policy that left me reassured, knowing that our police department does not play any role in enforcing federal civil immigration law. We do have a long way to go to build trust across the community that that's the case, but I am confident that we'll be able to get there with the continued efforts of everybody here in the room. So I stand by our work on the select board. I stand by your work. And I am really looking forward to sending this forward to town meeting and hear their deliberation and, really have town meeting make the decision. But I do think that this bylaw does send a message. Someone here made that in their comments, that this is a very important message for Plymouth to be sending out, that this is what we stand for and this is what we believe in. So thank you all again very much for your work here.
Mr. Cohen?
Turning the mic on, sorry about that. It's interesting because my colleague was just saying to me that I have a lot of notes, writing down a lot of notes on my paper, because basically I was listening, because at a certain point, I get accused of talking too much at times, and sometimes listening is where you need to be. And I think that this branch of the government had a meeting in January. They came to a conclusion in coordination with the police department. I find that this article that's being proposed at town meeting complements the results of that night. And I just heard a series of things tonight that I was just jotting down in terms of civilian oversight and levels of protection and intentionally putting things in line with other policies consistent with the town and what the residents want to see to feel safe. So I was hearing, I think my job tonight was to listen and to hear. I'm prepared to support this article to Springtown meeting. But I, again, like my colleague has just indicated, I thank everyone for putting their time and effort in educating me on this issue. Thank you.
Mr. Quinto?
Thank you. Mr. Cohen, I didn't make a remark about how many notes he had. It's the way he had them. That was the comment. It's like, how do you, it's like in circles. But anyway, you can keep up with it. That's good. You know, I have a different outlook on this, and I'm going to tell you why. Not that I don't think your passion's there, and what a lot you're saying around the country, I have to agree with you all. But I also have to tell you that if the police chief walked in that door and said that he supported this, and it wouldn't conflict with his policies or the way he runs the department, I'm not an attorney. Let me tell you about attorneys. You're going to have 10 of them sitting here, and they're all going to give you a different answer. You know that, too, in 47 years. So that was a joke. So for that one reason, I lean with the police department. I have full authority within our police department. We just had the deputy chief, I believe it is, Jamie LeBreton, graduate from Quantico. First time that's happened in the town's history. We have a police department that needs our support and has my support and always will, as long as they're doing things the way they should. And I have to tell you, and I wouldn't sit here and tell you that if I didn't honestly believe that, anybody that knows me. As far as immigrants go, or immigration, Brazilians in Plymouth, let me give you a little history. I was born here in 1958 in North Plymouth. It was Portuguese and Italians, pretty much through up and down Cherry Street. Everybody yelled out the window, everybody hung their food there on Sundays, coming back from St. Mary's Church. I've seen that evolve now into Brazilian citizens everywhere. And you are right, they are scared to go out. They are scared to go to church. They're scared of a lot of things. Since this whole thing started, I've had many calls. They're down at the ICE, federal government's down at say Hedge School. Well, I'm not far from Hedge School at my work, nor my house. So I drove down there, and yeah, if there was something going on, there probably would have been a confrontation, and I probably would have been right in the middle of it. I stand by that then, I stand by that now, and I stand by that tomorrow. When you see that what you're trying to propose here, if it does confusion, do you remember the charter questions at town meeting? You had 2 or 3 different versions, and everybody was going back and forth, and nobody knew what was going on. At least that was my take on it. So, I've said it before, I'll say it again here tonight. My fiance is Brazilian. I live with Brazilians, and I know more Brazilians than anybody in this room. I've sponsored 7 Brazilians to become citizens in this country since I took over my father's company in 1989, maybe more. I have 3 applications in now, and tonight I'm writing letters for more. So I'm very aware of everything. What you see in Minnesota is not what's happening in Plymouth. And nor does this bylaw going to prevent that. People were shot, children and parents at a hockey game yesterday. Do we come in here the following week and make a law? These things are going to happen. Do I agree with them? Absolutely not. I was horrified like the rest of you were. But even if this were to pass or does pass town meeting, you aren't going to prevent that from happening here. I don't know who and when come on the board, but I do remember upstairs in the executive office, the police chief attended before any of this stuff happened. He basically told us they will not be involved in civil, whatever you call it, enforcement action. Thank you. However, if it's criminal, they have to attend. So this is not going to change that either. So I just want you to understand where I'm coming from, and I'm being honest with you. And I will say this, if something was to be wrong in this town, I'd be the first one to back up and stand. But I can't support this. If the police chief comes in this week, Tuesday, and says he can, then I will. But until then, I won't. And I hope town meeting doesn't either. Because, you know, everybody wants to be protected. Well, you got to have your faith in your law enforcement department. Seriously. I mean, I have no reason not to. Thank you.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yeah, Mr. Quintal, I totally appreciate your comments and your perspective. I think you have a unique perspective given your, you know, the people that you're able to employ and to help gain their citizenship. So thank you for that. I don't see this as a competition between the police policy and a town bylaw. In fact, I see them as complementary pieces. So the police policy, which is now the select board policy, really just defines the operational roles and responsibilities of the police in terms of federal immigration enforcement. And clearly, we all know and recognize, and your bylaw does not prohibit the police from getting involved in criminal activities. I mean, that's a given. We're talking about civil immigration enforcement and assuring due process. And I think that if the chief were here, I'm not going to speak for him, but in my conversations with him, I think he would tell you that that's what their mission is, to protect all of the people and protect and preserve the constitutional rights, federal and state constitutional rights of all residents. So I do see them as complementary. I see it as, you know, we have the police policy on the one hand that talks about how the police will help to protect people in instances of federal immigration enforcement. And on the other hand, we could have a bylaw which speaks to our values as a community and how we want to treat people and how we want want all of us residents, not just the police department, but all residents to act in the face of immigration enforcement. Thank you.
Mr. Quintel?
Thank you, Deb. I appreciate that. Now, I would like to ask the town manager to ask the police chief to come in next week and explain this to us, why it could create confusion, because now I'm confused. Thank you.
Mr. Canty?
So while I agree that what's happening in Minneapolis is not happening here, a few months ago, it wasn't happening in Minneapolis. A few months before what happened in Los Angeles, the things that happened in Los Angeles weren't happening there. It is by the time they're here, by the time they're conducting themselves in that way, it is already too late. And I think it is important that this community do what it can now and demonstrate where we stand now. That we not be reactive, we be proactive, that we do not hold back out of fear, which is an argument that I've heard from the other side, that if we do something, then we'll get on their radar. I find that to be a very troubling. I think that is how you lose a democracy, how you lose a republic, by being afraid to do something, to stand up, and to make your values heard when it matters. I think it's very easy to say that this won't happen here. But by the time it does, it's too late. And I, for one, want to put my values forward and demonstrate where I stand on this issue now, and not wait for someone else to force me to act later.
Mr. Quintel?
In response to you, Mr. Canty, you have all the right in the world to believe what you believe. And I wasn't basing my decision on Minnesota. Okay, but thank you for the clarification and all that. You seem to like limelight and microphones. I'm a little different than that. Oh, is it?
All right, folks.
So
Thank
if
you.
you think by this bylaw, if it is to pass town meeting, it's going to stop what happened in Minnesota, that's not going to happen either. So we'll be here a month after that doing it again.
Folks, this is the board's time. I'm going to ask that the folks in the audience keep comments to themselves at this point. We did reopen public comment. We respected your time. I ask that you just respect ours as well. Thank you. Mr. Cohen?
Just to reiterate, obviously our board has had a chance to make decisions regarding this subject matter. Now it is a petitioned article going to spring town meeting, as the chairman has indicated, and I think we all agree this is going to be heard by town meeting, and this is their opportunity to discuss this. This is part of the checks and balances of this process. We share our authority with that branch and other aspects of this government. So I think that at this point, it is best to allow town meeting the opportunity to debate this with the police's input and others' input. I'm sure it's going to be interesting at the 18 caucuses and eventually town meeting. So I look forward to that debate and respect that legislative body's jurisdiction over the matter.
Member of the public asked if someone opposes this tonight, that they explain why they do so. So I'll do that now. Throughout this discussion, I have always maintained that the first and only answer we should have where it regards federal immigration policy is that the town of Plymouth, through its police department, through its other departments, will follow the relevant state and federal laws. That's it. And that's what the police chief's policy is already. He's following the laws that are on the books. He's following judicial decisions that have been rendered by the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court and the Supreme Court of the United States of America. I think that that's the only thing that we should do in regards to immigration in the town of Plymouth. There are people who are really passionate about this, and you know, but I think that the rhetoric has gotten away from us at this point. I hear things like snatching and kidnapping and things like that, and I'm just going to tell you folks, because I've mentioned this in other settings, but I don't know that I've ever said it in public through a select board meeting. I come from a very broken family. I've experienced through multiple generations in my family substance abuse, crime, a variety of issues. I've witnessed cousins, aunts, uncles, and yes, even my parents arrested in front of my face as a child. Much of my childhood prior to high school, I didn't live with my parents because of the legal trouble that they were in. So I reject the notion that this is going to be a silver bullet that will make people trust the police. I have the utmost faith in our men and women in the Plymouth Police Department. If you don't trust them today, you're not going to trust them when this is enacted. And there's nothing that we can do to bring you along. When someone's in trouble, you should call the police. If you've witnessed something that is illegal, you should call the police. I can't help you if you choose not to do so. So those are the reasons that I plan to vote against this. But as I said earlier, this matter will go to town meeting and our legislative body will get to make that decision. So regardless of where I stand, they get to make the final choice. So with that, is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the roll. Mr. Cohan,
Yes.
Mr. Quinto,
No.
Mr. Canty,
Yes.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
And myself, no. The Plymouth Select Board has made a favorable recommendation for town meeting to approve Article 37. Thank you, folks.
Thank you for the privilege of speaking to you, and thank you for opening up
Thank you.
discussion.
We'll move on now to the town manager's report. Mr. Brindisi?
All right. Do you want me to? Okay. So I just start with Jenny Pond update. So as you know, that's a $17 million project that's being led by Director of Energy and the Environment, David Gould. So $10 million of that $17 million was funded through a federal grant through NOAA. And it's happy to report, 'cause I know there were a lot of concerns about a year ago whether or not the federal resources would continue to flow. And so I'm happy to report that we have received over $4 million of the $10 million so far. So we would continue to expect to see those federal resources fund this project. And speaking of the project, we are in the process of completing the walkways under the two bridges. So again, all new walkways will be completed over the course of the next, I'm just going to wait.
Folks in the audience, if you'd like to discuss prior matters, please step out into the vestibule. In fact, I'm going to call a 5-minute recess so that people can get out of the room if they so choose. back from our recess. Mr. Brindisi, if you wouldn't mind going back to your town manager's report.
I will restart from the top. So I mentioned that the Jenny Pond project continues to move forward. As you all know, that project was $17 million in total costs. $10 million of that project came from NOAA, a federal agency. And so there were concerns about a year ago, given what was going on with the federal administration, that federal resources wouldn't continue to flow down to the local level. I'm here to report that of the $10 million grant that the town received, $4.2 million has already been accounted for. And so given the fact that we continue to receive those dollars, we are fully expecting to receive the full $10 million of that project. And just as a quick update on the project itself, they're in the process of completing the improvements to the 2 walkways under the 2 bridges. So we'll continue to report out on this project. We're hoping that this project will be completed sometime this year. And speaking of projects that are being led by David Gould, the Director of Energy and the Environment, the Pinnacle Bog Restoration Project is underway. So this is a project I've talked a lot about in the last couple of months. It's now moving forward. So we fully intend for the restoration of those bogs to be completed sometime this spring. And an item that has been brought up in the past, 0 Spoon Street, is the old fire station. So as you all know, we were close to executing the sale of 0 Spoon Street. That unfortunately fell through. Mr. Janeo, the Assistant Town Manager, has been working very closely with the Planning Department and the Grants Officer, Tiffany Park, to pursue whether they're state or federal resources to remediate that property. So as we all know, that we did find contamination, petroleum contamination, in particular PFAS contamination in the soil. So per the board's direction a couple months back, we are pursuing grants that we can clean up the property. Once the property is cleaned up, and then we'll consider going back out to bid on that property. So that's just an update on 0 Spooner. And I want to just let folks know that unfortunately there was a really unfortunate incident over the weekend down in Eastham, where individuals had fallen through the ice. We do know that probably at least one individual who's been lost, probably a second individual soon. So the fire chief is working with our communications coordinator, Casey Kennedy, to just issue reminders and messages to the community that they need to be careful if they're going to walk on the ice. We don't recommend anyone walk on the ice because we can't determine whether or not that ice is safe or not. So, our communication to folks is just do not walk on the ice, stay safe because of the time of year that it's in. So we'll be pushing that information the next day or two just as ice safety reminders. And just again, because it's coming up next Thursday, the open meeting law training will take place in this room at 6 p.m. We invited all of our board and committee members to attend the open meeting law training. We think it's really important. KP Law will be down here providing this free training. Again, 6 p.m. in this room next Thursday. And then as another reminder, March 31st, dog licenses are due. So please, anyone with a dog, I think we have over 7,000 dogs here in town. Please try to get your license in by March 31st, because after that, we will impose a late fee. And then vote by mail coming from the town clerk's office. So this year, for the May election, typically we send out reminders to individuals who want to vote by mail. This year, you will not get a reminder. So if you want to vote by mail for the May election, local election, please go to the town clerk's office and fill out an application. The town clerk's office will then execute that and send your ballot to your home so you can vote by mail. We'll continue to bring that up over the course of the next couple of months as we build up towards the May election. And then I'll just, 2 more items. We just announced this evening that the housing rehab program is now underway through the planning department. This is a really great program. It's funded, again, by federal funds through the community development block program. This is for anything for roof repairs, electrical and plumbing repairs, if you want to do accessibility improvements to your home. But you need to be income qualified in order to qualify for this housing rehab program. This is a program we'll offer free resources for individuals to make improvements to their home. So if you are interested in this and you are of lower income, I would encourage you to contact 508-322-3320 and speak to one of the planning department's representatives. Again, the number is 508-322-3320. This information is now posted on the town website, encouraging folks to apply for the housing rehab program. And then last, I'll end, although this version of Plymouth on the Move was released in early January, we just received the hard copies. These can be found at the library, it can be found on the 4th floor here at Town Hall, or can be found at the Center for Active Living. So folks that want to learn more about everything that's going on here in town, please review the most recent magazine. Pending any questions, that's all I have for this evening.
Are there any questions for Mr. Brindisi? Derek, have any of the submissions for money related to Jenny Pond taken extra time or been denied?
None have been denied. In fact, they said that we're getting them turned around within a few days once we submit for reimbursement.
That's great news.
Yeah.
Mr. Quinto?
Derek, going back to dog license, I had 2 calls from seniors, and I was told that if you're a senior, you do not have to pay a fee for a dog license.
Okay.
And they wanted to know why it didn't really say it on the application itself.
That's a good question. We'll
You
follow
know,
up.
I mean,
Yeah,
I haven't
future-
investigated it myself, but I did
Right.
get 2 calls on it. So you
That's a
could
good
check
question.
that out. And if not, they should either say it on the application or have a slip in there somewhere.
I will follow up.
Further questions? We'll move on then. Select board discussion, new business. Mr. Canty.
So, over the weekend, just prior to the weekend, we received an email from one of our town meeting members that has since left about the petition that he had put forward to get signatures to call a special town meeting that he anticipates filing. So we've also talked recently in relation to the budget about the idea of looking to move our town meeting date, looking to move, and so that we have more information about the budget, the state budget, state aid, in informing our budget. So over the weekend, I spent some time putting together some draft article language to amend the charter and to amend the general bylaw to permit the town meeting to be held later and to permit actually the election to be held later to accommodate that. So under the proposal that I've currently drafted, town meeting would be held the day that the election is currently held. And the election would be moved back to the weekend prior to Father's Day, because the election was moved a number of years ago, 8-10 years ago, away from Mother's Day, because that was viewed as lowering turnout. So if we're going to move it, I don't want to infringe on the companion holiday. So I think that may help us. And there is still the flexibility for town meeting to adjust itself, like there is under the current bylaw within April, but this would make it more flexible. So if a special town meeting is called and the special town meeting warrant opens, we would have the opportunity to file those warrants articles, and they would hopefully be ready to be acted upon and inform our process sooner. And I intend to turn that over to town council for review as well, but it's relatively straightforward. But I think that could help us inform our budgetary process as our local finances continue to tighten.
Thank you, Mr. Canty. I think taking action on this as early as possible is wise on our part. So I guess we should prepare for that. Other new business? Mr. Quinto?
At the VSB meeting tonight, we had all the applications we were going through. We'll do that for several of the future meetings. And Mr. Begley from the Plymouth Pawtuckets was there, and he was talking about the 250th anniversary and what they were doing over there. And so I reached out to him and asked him if he would mind sitting on a town meeting, committee, if you will, to set up the 250th. I think the board should advertise and enact the 250th committee where everybody's involved, whether it be 4th of July, Thanksgiving celebration, what they have going on over at the Pawtuckets. Maybe invite Melissa, is it Fazzetti? Freddie, have her at the table also, and let them do and plan the 250th.
Yep, we can get that.
So they're all in sync and they can promote it together. Lee Filson was there, she thought it was a great idea.
Yep, it's a great idea. I think Mr. Cohen also has something similar on that.
No, I would join Dicky in his avocation. I think that we should put together a 250th working group to advise the board on suggestions of how we can celebrate that event. Obviously, we're a couple of months into the year. Time is of the essence to kind of identify who should be on the committee and take those applications and move forward as quickly as we can to get their input. Thank you.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yeah, I think this is a great idea. I just want to clarify, so would we be opening up committee membership to everybody, or would we select the people that would be most likely to have input to it, such as a representative from Sea Plymouth and representative from Plymouth Patuxent, like just kind of, invite people that are involved in these kinds of activities independently to come together, or would we just open it up to the community, or both?
I think we might reserve a few seats for the general population, but also obviously we need to go to the organizations like Sea Plymouth and Plymouth Patuxent and others, and Pilgrim Hall. There's a lot of different organizations that we want to reach out to and ask them to send someone over. But we could always leave a few open for the general population.
That's great, thank you.
Mr. Canty?
If you are going to solicit from organizations, I would suggest soliciting from the 4th of July committee as well as from America's Hometown Thanksgiving
I
celebration.
mentioned
as
that
well.
a minute ago.
I appreciate that.
I did mention that to Matt
Right.
Tavares. I
Yeah.
brought it up with him,
Right.
and he's looking forward to.
So is all.
Yeah, I know that the 4th of July committee is in a transitional state, but I've
He's
heard
pretty-
about the
Matt's-
trials and tribulations there.
Right. Matt's back in running that.
Yeah,
so-
Matt's staying on.
For the time being.
Yes.
I had some other new business if that.
Please.
Yep. And that was obviously a couple of weeks ago, we were discussing wastewater here in the town of Plymouth. As a board, we are the water commissioners for the town. I did note that we have the wastewater advisory committee. We have the water conservation entity that put together a master plan a few years ago that we've reviewed at different times. They have not been meeting for some time, for well over a year and a half. I had mentioned this idea of maybe reconstituting that committee. But we also have, the wastewater comprehensive master planning committee. So we have, and that has a statute to, has requirements under the statute. So I'd like to explore and engage and bring it back to the board, some ideas of how we might better coordinate this water advisory activity around our responsibilities. So something that I was going to start to explore and run by my fellow board members on how we might want to approach that subject matter in the future.
So you're talking about consolidating committees? Is that the?
One of the suggestions would be to come back and consolidate the committees to get a coordinated voice. But we have to we do have to recognize their responsibilities. One's doing conservation, one's doing wastewater, one's doing wastewater master planning. But I'd like to reach out to those committees. I've been attending their meetings and get their input and bring it back to the board how they best would like to I just wanted to put it on your radar that you should be looking at how we can better coordinate that information coming to this board, whether it's consolidating committees or reconstituting committees. I just wanted to embark on that effort. And if anybody wants to join me, that'd be fine.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea to get input from those committees. Mr. Canty?
I think maybe I would, as a preliminary matter, suggest that it may be beneficial because I think wastewater management, groundwater discharge have specific non-drinking water related mandates, that it may be beneficial to have like a designee or a liaison from those committees on the drinking water. I would imagine the water quality and conservation would be primarily concerned with protecting the aquifer as a potable water source. So obviously the work of those other committees informs, but there are going to be some significant unrelated tasks that a drinking water related committee would do that I think the others should, their mandate should be maintained and they're separate. But that would just be my opinion, but that would just be my initial suggestion. I do think adding it to an agenda in the near future would be beneficial.
Great. Ms. Iaquinto?
So I have some new information about old business, so I feel like this is the best time to bring that up. We've been working over the past couple of months on an e-bike education and communication plan, drawing from all of the great input and information and feedback that we got when we attempted to do an e-bike bylaw. And we are very close to launching something, so I would love if we could, if it's possible, to get even 10 minutes on an agenda sometime in early March, just to show the community what the plan is. So the plan will include, it includes a web page with really good information about what is an e-bike, what is it not, where do you ride it. We've already drafted content. It's the police chief has approved the content and is comfortable with it. So we'd love to get that out there. We have created signage that's going to go in several locations around town. So I'd like to just talk about a little bit about that, where it's going to be and what it will say. We're also creating some pamphlets that we will hopefully distribute through our bike shops, as well as through other community areas, the library and places like that, which again is just, it's all educational and tips and how to keep yourself safe and those sorts of things. And then we're also looking at perhaps doing some community events on bike safety, and hopefully we'll engage the bike shops in that. So it's a pretty robust plan, and I just wanted to give a shout out to Jade Anderton and to Casey, who have been really instrumental in pulling this all together. So thank you. Thank you. So if we could get that on the agenda, just, we don't need a lot of time, but I just want to close the loop on all of the good input and work that we've done to take it this far.
You got it.
Thank you.
Other new business? Letters? Old business? Mr. Canty?
So I mentioned this in relation to the Article 37 discussion, but I did have an opportunity to draft amended policy language to address the remaining gap with the immigration enforcement that we talked about on January 6th, that being a policy as it relates to non-Plymouth police employees. Town council is currently reviewing that. I would request that that be added to an agenda. I think we have discussed it already, so I'm okay with it being an admin note personally, because we mentioned doing this during January 6th. And had an opportunity to fully vet this particular component of that solution that we reached on that night. If other members of the board want it to be a substantive item, I'm fine with that, but I think what's important is just passing the policy to address the remaining unaddressed issues policy-wise.
We'll get that on the agenda. Do you know when, has town council given you any indication when the turnaround would be?
She said she's going to review it over the next couple of days, and then we'll have an opportunity to sit down and talk about it. The changes are not large versus what was already proposed. So once I've had that review, I can certainly report back, but we should be able to do it prior to town meeting at some point.
True. Okay, thank you. Other old business? Mr. Cohen?
Just a quick update to the board. As you know, earlier this year, we talked about the possibility of engaging the Plymouth Philharmonic in this idea of a artisan in residence. That process seems to be moving forward. The Phil has been meeting with staff and with board members to give an outline of what that relationship might look like, which the town is going to continue to reach out to clarify issues related to it, and hopefully at one point we'll bring it back to the board where we can get a presentation and discuss how we want to proceed with such a policy. But I just wanted to reach out to my fellow board members and let them know that that progress is being made.
Other old business? Our next meeting is scheduled for February 24th. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Canty makes the motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Ms. Iaquinto seconds. Discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Quintel?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Myself, yes. We are adjourned. Thank you.